Welcome to the story of us, from cosmic dawn to the depths of being. I'm your host, Jeff Ellison, and today we're going to put a wrap on season 1. I can't believe I'm sitting here in my podcast studio. It's already December 28th, 2025. Now, I do have my bags packed for an end-of-year adventure that I'm really excited about. But I wanted to take the opportunity today, before we jump into the great unknown and go exploring, to put a wrap on not just season 1 of the story of us, but on 2025. And, while I don't necessarily believe in this, but I don't not believe, I've been looking a lot at the Chinese lunar calendar, the lunar zodiac, I think they call it. And it's interesting. 2025 was the year of the snake. And it felt like it, because the year of the snake, I'm told, is about introspection, shedding the old and clearing paths towards the future, focusing on inner wisdom and release. But 2026, well, Happy New Year, kids, because 2026 is the year of the fire horse. And what I'm told is that if you believe in these lunar zodiac calendars, the year of the fire horse brings forward momentum, bold action, and real transformation, moving from quiet clearing to energetic expansion and pursuing new goals with courage, making it a year of action and embodiment after the snake's preparation. So kind of cool. And probably the year of the snake was a good year to start the Story of Us project. Season 1 was really about, setting the table, finding our voice, and most importantly, remembering why stories matter. And it seems like to me, every good story starts with a table. And coincidentally, our story started with a table. We got to share an intimate night in Kathy's kitchen. My Aunt Kathy, my Uncle Kelly, around their kitchen table. This is how the story of us, from cosmic dawn to the depths of being, started. And it was a little messy. We were learning how to work the equipment. There was lots of background noise. We learned a lot from Kathy, but we also learned a lot from that first recording. And, the table, it's not often perfect. Not one with matching chairs or polished silver, but a table where people are always welcome, where questions are allowed and encouraged, and where no one is asked to pretend they're fine when they're really not. That's how the Story of Us project began. And season 1, the whole season 1, was really about setting that table. Sometimes very carefully, sometimes a little clumsily, but all the while asking each other, what happens when we slow down long enough to really listen to other people? That was the thread that wove us together this first season. Across these, first conversations and reflections, a few steady themes emerged for me. I want to talk about one specifically today that I think sums up the lesson that I received from 2025. But before we do that, let's recap a little bit about what we learned in season 1. Across these first conversations and reflections, we did have some very steady themes. There were stories about survival. There were stories on, reflections from It's a Wonderful Life, my favorite movie, to deeply personal letters to my children and parents. We kept circling around the same truth. Stories remind us that our lives matter, especially when we forget. They help us lasso the moon when the world feels heavy and that light feels pretty far away. Other themes that emerged were themes of pain, but also compassion, and the quiet work of healing each other. Whether through conversations about chronic pain or mental health, caregiving, or the unseen work of those few who serve children who have special or complex needs. Through all these conversations, we learned that Pain is universal, but so is compassion. Healing doesn't always mean fixing. Sometimes it means staying there, being there. And we talked a lot about mental health. We talked about how this is the conversation that I feel like we keep avoiding, but is becoming more and more necessary as each day goes by. As it relates to mental health, we talked openly about things like anxiety, depression, parenting kiddos who struggle sometimes, and the cultural discomfort that still surrounds mental health. Again and again, the message was clear. Naming the struggle doesn't weaken us. It releases us. It frees us. Now, another theme that came up a lot this year was about the middle lane of life. And well, quite frankly, that's because, I struggled with turning 50 this year. I struggled with the challenges of parenting older children. But I was able to sit back and reflect and understand that watching my kids become what they're going to be felt like watching sunrises in slow motion in different ways. Realizing that the wonder years of life didn't disappear, they just kind of changed shape. Season 1 honored the sacred ordinariness of this middle ground in life, where I find myself, where awe and whispers instead of shouts. Now, we also talked a lot about faith and courage and running towards what matters. My good friend Paul Osteen shared with us a lot about running to the roar. But from faith-filled journeys to quiet spiritual practices, we also explored what it means to step off the wheel, to run towards that roar instead of away from it, and to let our souls shine without needing a round of applause. Now, I was able to weave in some lessons that don't need footnotes. My mantra for life, of course, we focus with that. I think my kids are going to etch this on my gravestone. They've heard this more than anything else their whole life, but it's work hard. Be nice. Good things happen. And let that be enough. But let's be honest. Season 1 was mostly about experiment. I'm figuring this out as I go. We were trying to learn how to use the podcasting equipment without accidentally screwing it all up. Learning how to conduct an interview with another human being without, being nervous or hitting the pause button, nodding too much. We were also trying to find our voice while occasionally clearing our throats or coughing. We did some great stuff. We learned how to build a whole website. You can visit that at www.thestoryofussproject.com. We built out some social media pages and even a Substack. And all the while wondering, is this the button supposed to do that or whatever? I don't know. It was messy. It was not perfect. And it was exactly how beginnings are supposed to look. So, if season 1 taught us anything, I think it taught us this. Clarity comes from showing up, not from waiting until everything is fully polished. And 2026, not only for all humans, but for the story of us and this podcast, it's going to be much better. I can guarantee it because we've already figured some of these things out. We're going to have better sound, better flow, deeper conversations, but it's going to be the same heart. And so, in closure for this year, I want to thank you for sitting at the table with me. If you happen to listen, or you read blog posts, or you shared social media content, or even better than that, you commented on it, or you quietly carried one of the stories that you heard in your pocket with you, thanks. You made this more than a project. You've started to make it a community. And so here's my invitation for season 2, which will start again sometime in late January. But I ask you to follow along. If something strikes you in the heart, share it with other people. Use the opportunity to pull up a podcast of ours and practice your deep listening skills. Or just pull up a chair and have a conversation with me. I'd love to hear your story. The story of us is still being written, and I would just love for you to be a part of the next chapter. So in closure, here's the one thing that I want to share with you that I feel like was my overarching lesson for 2025 that I'm going to carry with me into 2026 as I ride that fire horse all the way through to 2027. Who knows what's going to happen, but this is the lesson I want to take with me, and I want to share with you. Recently, a couple of weeks ago, I was rushing for my 12th cup of coffee in the company break room. You know, it's been one of those end-of-year mad dashes, but I was going for my coffee, and a curious item on the table caught my attention. Someone had left one of those plastic easy button promotional gadgets sitting there right next to the tin of Christmas cookies, and it made me pause. And it kind of got me thinking. You know, somewhere between aisle 9 and the copy paper, some genius marketing executive discovered what they thought could be humanity's greatest gift for salvation: the easy button. A bright red promise, a shiny silver lining, a plastic prayer to the gods of convenience. And I won't lie, man, I desperately wanted one. Especially on that given day, I wanted a real one. Preferably maybe strapped to my forearm like a superhero gadget so I could press it during tax season, traffic jams, or possibly whenever anyone says, hey boss, we got to talk. Just imagine an actual button that clears your inbox, reconciles your emotions, evaporates your worries, and perhaps, if you hold it down long enough, makes your relatives behave on Thanksgiving. But here's the plot twist. If life did have an easy button, would it still feel like life? Would we still grow? Would our struggles still sculpt meaning? Or would we all end up emotionally unseasoned, like my sweetheart mother-in-law's mashed potatoes? Because the truth hiding inside that red whimsical button is this: some of the most beautiful joys in our human journey are earned, not granted. They come wrapped in grit, courage, confusion, possibly the occasional meltdown, and the triumph, sometimes wobbly, step forward after all the hard work. We were born to do hard things. In fact, hard things are often the very things that mold us into the best version of ourselves. So I want to introduce you to a new thing I call the easier button. And it's the easier button we've been missing. Is it easy? No. But easier? Absolutely. There's ancient wisdom that suggests life doesn't get easier by avoiding difficulty. It gets easier by changing how we meet and react to difficulty. And this is where what I've learned about Buddhism quietly sits down next to me, offers me a cup of warm tea, and says, "You're holding on too tight." Which brings us to the easier button. Not a button you push to fix life, but a button you press to soften your grip on it. Now, my boy, Thich Nhat Hanh, we've talked a lot about him in season 1. He had a way of taking these cosmic truths and wrapping them in really modern, accessible language. He's often quoted as saying, "Let go of the things that do not serve you. When you release them, you are free." And he also said, people have a hard time letting go of their suffering. Out of a fear of the unknown, they prefer suffering that is familiar. Wow. He wasn't promising this painless life. He was promising us freedom. the inner ease that comes when we stop clutching every moment like a phone we're afraid to drop. If Buddhism designed an easy button, now I can imagine it would probably be compostable, minimalist, maybe made from some recycled prayer flags or something like that. But instead of chirping, "That was easy," it might lean in gently and whisper, "Let it be." And maybe this is why we don't really need an easy button after all. Maybe what we need is something more like what the Beatles offered decades before Staples sold their first red circle of hope. In those timeless lines in one of my favorite songs ever, "Speaking words of wisdom, let it be." Yeah, I know, it's bad. But Paul McCartney sings not about resignation, but about release. Not about giving up, but giving over to the moment, to the mystery of life, to the river. That simple lyric echoes the same quiet truth that's whispered throughout Buddhist teaching. There's a kind of power in losing our grip, a freedom in letting things be what they are, a peace available when we stop wrestling with the world and we start listening to it. Man, I love that song, "Let It Be." Every time I listen, I'm reminded to find comfort not in answers, but in presence. That gentle reminder that even in times of trouble, there's a wiser voice within us saying, "Hey man, don't force it. Don't clutch at it. Just breathe. Let it be." Thich Nhat Hanh would nod knowingly at the Beatles. He would have loved that song. He spent his life teaching that suffering begins not with pain itself, but with the war we wage against reality. He would tell us that to let it be is not being passive. It's profoundly courageous. It says, "I trust that this moment, even this one, it has something to teach me. I choose to meet life as it is, not as I demand it to be. I can love deeply without clinging, and I can navigate difficulty without drowning in it." So, guys, that's the easier button. Not a device that makes life simple, but a posture that makes life livable. Not a gadget that erases our challenges, but an inner shift that lets us rise to meet them with an open heart and unclenched hands. When we choose to let go of what we can't control, the pace, the outcome, the impermanence of everything we love, we stop bracing against life and we start dancing with it. And suddenly, the world feels a little lighter. Not because the storm is past, but because we've stopped insisting that storms should not exist at all. So maybe the button we've been searching for isn't red or round or sold in office supply stores. Maybe it's a breath, a moment of stillness, a willingness to release the story that everything must go our way before we can be at peace. And when we finally learn to press that button, not to escape life, but to embrace it, we discover that every obstacle is a doorway, every hardship a teacher, every moment an invitation to return to ourselves. Because if Buddhism knows anything, it's this. It's that the real magic button isn't magic at all. It's a kind of mindfulness, the quiet art of remembering that we don't own the river, we don't control its speed, and we definitely didn't design its twists and turns. We're just learning to float along with a little more grace, a little less flailing and splashing, and far fewer attempts to boss around the current. Mindfulness isn't about deleting our difficulties. It's about meeting them with eyes wide open and breath steady. It's the practice of pausing long enough to notice that life is happening right now, not later. And that half our suffering comes from trying to swim out or outthink something that was never chasing us in the first place. And Buddhism, well, I've learned a lot about it. It's been a lot of fun. And despite the exotic imagery that Hollywood sometimes sells us, it's not about worshiping statues or memorizing ancient doctrines. It's far more intimate than that. Buddhism is a kind of user manual for the human mind. It's written in metaphor, compassion, and the kind of simple truths that sound like poetry when they're spoken out loud. It doesn't demand belief. It just gives us tools. Tools for unclenching the heart. Tools for loosening the mind's tight grip on certainty. And tools for remembering that peace isn't something we chase. It's something we create by how we relate to the moment that is right in front of us. At its core, Buddhism is a psychological toolkit cleverly disguised in verse and parable, a treasure box of ancient human wisdom that's whispering to us, you don't have to control everything to be okay. You just have to stop trying to control everything. And once we start practicing that, once we learn to float rather than flail, life doesn't suddenly become easy, but it becomes easier in the only way that truly matters. And that's from the inside out. So I want to give you some of the basics. Okay, no funny orange robes are required here, but if you have no insight into Buddhist teaching, it's been really powerful for me. Here's a quick crash course to get you started. So number one, surprise, surprise, life contains pain. Buddhism begins by observing that life has some unavoidable rough edges. Stubbing your toe, yeah, it hurts. Loss hurts. And growth hurts. And usually because it requires us to stop doing something that's super comfortable. But the kicker is this. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is not. Pain is a natural and essential part of our life. It's actually good for us. It tells us when there's something wrong, or it challenges us to move past an obstacle. But suffering is the part that we create. Suffering is the story we build around our pain. So number two, we suffer because we cling, hold tight. We grasp on and hold tight to our expectations, to outcomes, to identities, to how things should have been by now, or how things always were. Buddhism calls this attachment, and it's the sticking point between what we want and what simply is. Number three, letting go makes life easier. Not easy, easier. Letting go doesn't make the storm disappear. It simply means we stop screaming at the clouds. It's learning to care deeply without strapping ourselves to the mast of perfection. It's trading control for presence, certainty for curiosity, and fear for some good old-fashioned flow. Now, number four, this is a good one. Mindfulness is that button. Mindfulness is just practicing being here, not 3 catastrophes ahead of ourselves, not 5 regrets behind. Those things don't exist. It's noticing your breath before your brain plays rerun loops of all 7 seasons of your personal drama series. Be present. Be mindful. Be in the now, because the now is all that really, truly exists. And of course, number 5, you don't control the river, but you can choose how you float in the river. Because life moves. Life moves fast. And it always has. Fighting the current is totally exhausting. But chilling and floating with awareness, now that can be liberating. Even the Buddha himself didn't promise a life without thunderstorms. Just a life where the storms no longer own you. So if we're talking a lot about letting go, what exactly are we letting go of? I think it's, just the usual monsters under our bed. The illusion that we have total control, we can let go of that. The myth that perfect outcomes actually exist. Or the belief that struggle is a sign of failure. We should let go of the fear that unclenching means losing something essential about ourselves. And we should let go of the emotional tangled ropes we cling to for the quote unquote just in case. So letting go, yeah, that's the easier button. It's the unburdening, the ungripping, the unclenching of the jaw, the opening of the chest, and the awareness of the storyline, your story. Your story matters. Early on my journey of self-discovery, I attended a meditation session at the local Tibetan Buddhist center just down the street from my home. And in the accompanying blog post, I put the website there. I would love for you guys to check it out if you're in Louisville, Kentucky. It's a cool place. And after the session that we had, the monk facilitated kind of a group question and answer session. And one of the audience members approached the mic and he asked the monk how he was going to tackle a major issue he had been grappling with in his life. Can't remember the specifics of it, but he was really searching for answers. And after listening very intently, like they do, the monk slowly lifted his head and looked at this guy, and he calmly replied something that I will forever remember. So simple, but so powerful. He looked at him and he said, "This problem of yours, is there a solution?" And if the answer is no, there is no solution to this problem, then what are you so worried about? But if the answer is yes, there is a solution to this problem, then what are you so worried about? Aha. Yeah. This was my ding, ding, ding moment, my road to Damascus awakening. It's a simple but profound way of helping me understand the true nature of just letting go. So for you, here are some simple, practical ways I think that you can bring all this down from the mountain and into your Monday morning. Okay? I suggest you exhale on purpose. A slow breath out is the oldest spiritual technology on the planet Earth. It resets your nervous system and it tells your inner drama queen, yeah, it's cool to take 5. Suggest that you name what you can't control. Say it out loud. Write it down. Let it go like a can of soup in our pantry that expired in 2017. Jessica still hadn't thrown away. Yeah, let it go. I suggest you care deeply, but not desperately. Just love with open hands. Relationships, your job, your hopes and dreams. I know, those are all living things. And living things, they need space to breathe, not a chokehold. So care deeply, but don't care desperately. And replace why me with maybe, what is this moment teaching me? Because every obstacle is a knock on the door of your personal development. Some knocks are louder than others. Just trust in the mystery. Call it God. Call it the universe. Call it the cosmic traffic controller. It's up to you. But let something larger than your ego take the wheel every once in a while. Because it's so important to embrace impermanence. Guys, everything changes. Everything moves. Everything evolves. That means your current struggle is not permanent either. And neither is your current doubt. So I think the easier button is the button we really need. That original easy button, it promised us convenience. It suggested life could be conquered with a tap. But the button we actually need, it isn't about removing the hard things. It's about removing the extra things, the resistance, the rumination, the white knuckle grip on outcomes that were never truly ours to be in command of. We grow in our lives not because the path is easy, but because we choose to walk it fully awakened. Letting go isn't a denial of life. It's a deeper trust in it, a belief that the river knows where it's going and that we are capable swimmers. When we stop trying to bend the universe into our shape, we discover it already holds us. Gently, curiously, sometimes clumsily, but always toward becoming more whole. Maybe the real easy button isn't a button at all. Maybe it's a practice, a willingness, a subtle shift in posture. And maybe, just maybe, when we stop fighting life and start dancing with it, we find that everything we once labeled as an obstacle was actually a doorway into being fully beautiful humans. Yeah. I think in the end, that's what 2025 taught me, that I'm going to carry with me into 2026 and hopefully further along. Thanks for joining us on the Story of Us project. I appreciate it. In closing out season 2, I'm not a poet, but I did write a poem that I want you to take with you in the year ahead. I want you to, this is for anyone wondering what comes next. We'll call it the page of 2026. The page is blank. Not because nothing has happened, but because it's there waiting for you. It doesn't ask for your perfection, only honesty. It doesn't demand a masterpiece, just your presence. You can write in pencil if you're unsure. You're allowed to cross things out. You can begin again mid-sentence. This year, may you tell the truth kindly. May you rest without guilt and choose courage more often than comfort. May you notice the small graces, the quiet winds, the soft mornings, the strength you didn't know you had. And when the story feels unfinished, remember, you are both the author and the most beloved character. Turn the page. We can't wait to read what you write next. Here's to stories worth telling. Here's to listening a little better. Man, here's to a kick-ass 2026. I appreciate you. I'm off on my journey. We'll resume season 2 in a short period of time. And until then, friends, peace be with you, and also with your spirit.